Good morning, friends, and here is yet one more video for you on relevant HR topic of the day. And today we are going to be talking about excellence in competency-based talent acquisition. So we all know about talent acquisition processes, how we select and hire people, but the word competency-based assessment interviews offers a more robust and reliable technique and method for evaluating candidates when we are recruiting them. So we focus on technical skills and soft skills through the competency-based assessment process. And this provides a very comprehensive understanding of a candidate's abilities and potential for success within a specific role. The structured nature of competency-based interviews, coupled with the use of behavioral questions and what we call the STAR methodology, and STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. This all the technologies that we use enhances the predictive validity of the assessment. And when we use this approach, we are better positioned to make more informed and objective hiring decisions that align with organizational goals and value. So I have with me today a subject matter expert. And before I introduce him, Dr. Kamath, would you like to say hello to our candidates, our participants?
Good morning, everybody. Let's enjoy and learn together.
Wow. So to introduce Dr. S. Prabhakar Kamath, he has held very senior level positions in leading corporations like Ashok Leyland, Aisha Group, BILT, Ballarpur Industries Limited, Caltex, which is now part of Chevron. He has been awarded a doctorate in human resources management with additional qualifications in commerce, training, and law. So he's really a total HR expert. He's an excellent facilitator who's backed by very deep conceptual and practical knowledge gained from the industry over 40 years of work experience. He is familiar with emerging concepts and tools, actively involved in OD and training interventions. He enables culture change, employee engagement practice processes for various organizations. And there are many subjects. These are all the subjects in which he constantly does a lot of research. So he has partnered in facilitating change interventions for many companies in India and abroad since 1998. The primary reason he is here is that he has authored this wonderful book titled Competency-based Interviewing, Competency-based Interviewing Skills. And another book that he has written is Leadership Demystified. But today we are talking about competency-based interviewing skills. Dr. Kamath, are we ready for our discussions?
I'm ready and pleasantly embarrassed. I didn't know all this introduction about myself was. It is Prabhakar Kamath. Thanks for that.
Fantastic. But I'm talking to an audience who are already HR folks, and they already have some experience. They don't need to be convinced that competency-based talent acquisition is the best way forward. So we don't need to get to the basics. What they really need to know is how to put it in practice. Because we all have the theory in our heads, and we know that there's a STAR method and we have questions for each competency, but how do we put it in practice? Because usually, an interview is a free-flowing conversation. We connect with the candidate, make our assessment based on that connection. But when we do a competency-based interview, we follow a structure, a set of questions in the STAR format. And then sometimes it feels like we are breaking the flow of our conversations and actually getting into a competency-based assessment. So how do we make the shift? Love to hear your point.
In your entire question, there is an answer.
Okay.
When we learn any new practice, the greatest struggle we go through is the pains of unlearning.
Yes.
All you said in your question is actually to be unlearned. That's the first step. I will rapport with the candidate. I am free flowing. Stop all this stuff. That's what I tell people. Building rapport with a candidate or any relationship in an interpersonal context is welcome, but that is budgeted for a minute and a half or so in the beginning of the interview, where you handshake and get introduced, and then make the person feel wanted and comfortable. Story ends. Now, free flowing conversation, all that has to be stopped. Once you are given the anesthesia, now the patient is on the surgery table, your surgery begins. I will put it metaphorically, it's like a surgery of knowing the inner person in the context of knowing a competency. The essential is before I get into the competency focused interviewing, am I aware of the key competencies I'm looking for? Have I prioritized? Am I clear? Trust me, many arrogant, overconfident interviewers do not do this work. Sorry for the words I used, but I meant it.
Okay.
There is a tendency to be overconfident. I've been doing interviews for long. I can, in any case, get in and do the work. That's where we drop the ball. So it's imperative. I know what competencies I'm looking for. Within that, I must be clear what is a priority. Yeah. If I have 5 minutes, I'll see competency one and come out. So be it. But that one is a must. I cannot come out of the room without checking it. So to that extent, an interviewer has to be prepared and clear before he enters the interview room. And it is not the level or the expertise, it is the sincerity and the planning for an important process that matters. Now comes the skill part of it. I asking a question anybody can do. If I premeditate, write the question and give, anybody can administer the question. But asking the question in a simplest manner, putting it across the language the candidate understands, yet he does not digress in a freewheeling manner, he stays focused. If you ask me, this is a communication excellence, not everybody's cup of tea.
True.
This is a skill practice people need to go through. They iteratively have to revisit their styles and fine tune. When you put the question across in an understandable, palatable manner for the candidate in context, 20% of the job is done. Now begins the 80% of the job. Asking the question, probing further. And there is a very big difference between this English word probing and prompting. The biggest disease many interviewers go through is prompting, leading. There is a tendency in many of us to seek an answer that we are looking forward to. Once we give a tip and the candidate acknowledges, we assume that is he is saying it, not at all. So this is the biggest pain of unlearning every person has to go through. It's not an interview, in an interaction. Right now between Aneeta and myself. Aneeta, no, isn't it this way, Dr. Kamath? I'll say yes, yes, very good. You said it nicely. It is very easy for me to escape acknowledging Aneeta without doing the hard work. But that's where Aneeta drops the ball. If she's conscious and listening, she's extracting the best out of me in terms of my convictions and belief without leading me in the path that she wants to listen to. So instead of competency-based interviewing skill, I'll say in any interactive skills, the restraint of need to lead the person is an important skill one needs to practice. Because in competency-based interview skill, when a person gives an answer to a leading question, that answer is useless. I cannot use that answer of the candidate for processing, decision making to be his because it is mine. And many interviewers malign the process by this urge to need. If they win over it, I will say they have reached now from 20, they have reached 80% success. Now the remaining 20% is taking notes, comprehending, debating or interacting with your panel members, synthesizing a report. Did I see the competency? If I saw that, to what extent I got a data to validate, to rate the person high, low, bad, good, ugly. That is easy. That 20% can happen. So the skill practice iteratively without leading, enabling the person, walking with the person, intervening at the right time, not interrupting, getting the evidence of his or her belief that supported the person to do the way he did or she did, and validating, yes, I see indicators pertaining to this person's these competencies, and hence I recommend he or she be selected.
Okay.
This discipline is what will put you in good stead when you practice this.
All right, but sometimes, usually interviews are done in a panel. And while I, as an HR business partner on the panel, I am aware of all this and I'm able to confront my own inner demons and stick with the structure that is planned, the rest of the line managers on the panel generally don't, follow the same kind of code of ethic or conduct or, structure. So that becomes very often a challenge. So I'm sticking to the subject and the topic, but the panel members, they are going all over the place and meandering without necessarily looking at only competencies. And so that is a huge challenge.
Okay. Sorry, are you done? Can I respond?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Here again, an interesting challenge, holier than thou attitude of the interviewer. I am good.
How
I
do
am
you
trained.
actually tell the rest of the panel members?
Hang on, hang on. I haven't come to the reply yet. The so-called interviewer saying, I know the process, I've done the work, I've been trained, I am good. I want to challenge that very paradigm itself. Because you have landed in a situation that you know the process, the other person doesn't know the process, you have not done your homework. So, to step back, when people are not trained in competency-based interviewing process, trying to practice in front of such untrained people, in any case, putting the cart before the horse. Why are you doing it? Now you are blaming he's untrained, he is misbehaving. No. In my opinion, in an organization, all the managers wanting to participate in an interview should go through the process and be aligned in one way. In that case, even one manager interviews, remaining three don't open their mouth for the 30 minutes. All the three will assess the same. But unfortunate part, some of the HR people keep it like that. No, the good old days, some of those, the Ayurveda people used to keep the medicine, the formula secret till death. No, this skill has to be taught to every panel member so that we put up a teamwork, we put up a good show, we put up a concerted effort in front of the candidate, and we appear as one organization. Whoever does the interview, the process is the same, and hence the outcome is likely to be close to the same. And that is a delight of this process. If one is trained, another is not trained, in any case, we are setting up ourselves for failure. That is a process correction I will first do. Second, I will advise to all my HR friends. I'm a worst critic of HR. People hate me for that. Pardon me. Many HR people say soft skill interview, technique. There is nothing like that. I want to eliminate this myth. Interview is only one. Checking for key competencies required for a position. If all are trained, any member is as competent as the other member. There is no specialist, there is no HR, nothing. All the trained managers of the company are trying to find a talent for the organization with same responsibility, respect, and ownership. And hence, all of them can be set up for the success. So we have to digress from individual skill orientation to an organization's process-centric approach. The entire setup will be beautifully aligned for a success. This is my take. Aneeta.
Okay, so coming to the next challenge of practically implementing this perfect ideal competency-based interview, because these are the real life challenges that we face when we actually go out to conduct interviews. And we don't write books on the perfect scenarios, but we look at real scenarios which are less than perfect. But one of the biggest challenges, according to me and my conduct of interviews, is that candidates love to talk about themselves. They like to present themselves in a positive light. In fact, sometimes candidates don't talk about their jobs, they talk about the jobs that their bosses actually did. And they project themselves as if they're one level above. And sometimes it's hard to know whether they're being authentic or projecting just an image of success. Or they're just saying that they did this. They're able to provide evidence also, and they're able to tell you exactly what they did, how they did. And it's hard to tell the difference. So what is your tips? What are your tips to potential interviewers? And how do you know the difference?
Now, the three questions, I'll rate this as the best question so far. Let me, for example,
I'm not looking for validation of myself. I'm looking for something that the viewers of this video are
and
going
I
to
know that, but where I'm coming from is from a very different dimension.
exactly.
If Aneeta and Prabhakar also were to attend an interview tomorrow for a position, let's respect a candidate is in a selling situation. He or she will put in the best foot forward and make an effort. So I will first come out of this paradigm of blaming the candidate, window dressing, presenting, wanting to talk. None of my problem. Every candidate is supposed to be like that. We don't expect to come and sit, do nothing. We expect him to speak his way out. Having said that, there are two interviewing skillful words called interrupting and intervening. Every interviewer should know the difference and practice the one that is going to enhance his productivity. Right now, between Aneeta and Prabhakar, there is a conversation. But if Aneeta takes me in a wrong direction, I'll stop her. Aneeta, could you please come back again? Vice versa, if I start flying kite, Aneeta will stop me. Prabhakar, I would be happy if you could help me on this dimension. This is called an intervention. This enhances the productivity of a process. And Aneeta will succeed in doing it if she is listening actively. If she overcomes the hesitation to intervene, if she enjoys intervening to get the nectar out of this interaction, if she gets into a passive listening mode, there is a very high likelihood I will hijack the agenda and and talk my hat off, and that may not be productive to the listeners and the learners. This is happening between two of us right now. And same will be applicable to an interviewing context too. Is the interviewer hesitant to intervene when he sees an opportunity to dig deeper to see the person behind? If he is hesitant, he needs to practice the skill, because often people get confused between interruption and intervention. Intervention enhances your productivity, you do it million times. Interruption messes up a process not even once you should do. Kindly learn the difference between that, practice the skill. Each one of you will set up yourself for success.
All right, so that helps me to say that, look, as an interviewer, I need to intervene to stay on track and ensure that I'm getting the right, authentic uh, information rather than a projected image of success.
Spot on.
That's the takeaway from here. The other very typical question that gets asked in a typical interview is, tell us about your strengths and weaknesses. And the strengths get over glorified, but candidates never speak about areas where they did not achieve something or any weaknesses. And if they do, it will be in a very rehearsed, politically correct manner. I used to get angry, but now I've done a lot of work and it doesn't happen anymore. And so many different kinds of corrective actions have already been taken to make sure we don't do all that again. So how do we look for the real disclosures from the candidates? That's how do we get to the real stuff?
Anita, it again takes me one step backwards. For example, the problem is not with the candidate again. The problem is with the interview. If you ask me, this is the most stupidest.
In fact, I'm sorry, I'm intervening here. That's exactly my question, because this is how it appears to the untrained interviewer. And I'd like the interviewer to know, how do you stay focused on your skill and eliciting the right information rather than, focusing on what the candidate is not doing right. So that's
So step back and understand. The entire question of yours explains why such a question is a stupid question. Thou shalt not ask such questions to a candidate, because even such a question is asked to you. All your life, you will give glorified manner, strength as a weakness, and then window dressing. And hence, this question is unproductive. You have to come out of this old habit where some funny fellow asked it. You are continuing to ask, God's sake, come out of this habit. Again, by going back to my first lesson, pains of unlearning. Yes. Now, an answer to this question. How can I ask this question? Aneeta, you've been a professional, done lots of work. I see your pedigree, I respect it. Could you please tell me one area in the last 2, 3 years that you have done something, but in hindsight, you believe Aneeta could have done better? Aneeta could have brought much more to the table. Is there any such one experience you have? You want to take me through that? If you ask me, I'm exactly asking your weakness. But there is a methodology to put this question. Every person in the world will reply you because I'm talking about Aneeta is a good lady. But in terms of Aneeta's greatness, is there some opportunities she sees? I'm sure she will take me, Prabhakar, 3 years back. I did X thing. I could have done, eventually realized it could have been X plus delta. But I landed up with X. Now, in hindsight, I recall this. Now, can you go back and tell me in that event, what happened to you? Why did you peg it at X? What was going through in your mind? I am sure I'll get an X-ray of Aneeta. What is the area for improvement? But that is my questioning, calibrating the question, and friendly and facilitative in the process to get the best out of Aneeta, rather than blaming Aneeta is, window dressing, not giving me an answer. The problem is inside me. The questioner, the enabler, the facilitative interviewer in me has to revisit, rejig the skills. I'm sure he will set up himself for success.
All right, that brings me to my next question to you. And these are, I'm telling you, real practical issues that the audience of this video are going to be confronting.
Sure.
As I said before, it's usually done in panels. The selection interviews are done in panels. And assuming that the entire panel is trained in the methodology and follows the methodology of competency-based interviewing in the manner in which we have kind of projected it to be. But there are functional competencies and there are HR and behavioral leadership kind of competencies. And the line manager to whom the job position reports to usually does the functional competency assessment and probes and asks a lot of questions. The particular audience I'm talking to today is the audience where they're young folks, they're hardly 30 plus years old, who are the HR BPs, and the line managers are generally much more senior and much more. And then the line manager says, it's my job and the position reports to me, I'm going to do the functional assessment. And it takes over a lot of the time. And you've set aside maybe 1 hour for the interview. So 45 minutes have gone by. And then the HRBP gets very little time to probe on the behavioral competencies and ask those questions that would really be. So again, this is a question of not staying in control. I know you will say that you've got to stay in control, you've got to make sure that. But in practicality, how would you advise the HRBPs to remedy this kind of situation?
See, I don't know whether I have to nurture them or I should wrap them on the knuckles. I will do both the part of it. Okay. First thing, a HRBP person has to come out of this paradigm. I am a human resource specialist. I have a special part of the interview to do. My line manager is a different breed of animal. He will do some part. This paradigm has to be broken. For me, an interview is just an interview. It has got nothing to do with functional HR, nothing. It is only one. My organization stands for this position needs to have A, B, C, D competency, period.
Yes.
Now, when we are committed to A, B, C, D competency to be checked, the HRBP can check all the 4. The line manager can check all the 4. It is the excellence in listening, comprehending, interviewing, getting the sufficient data to take to see the competency is present or not, period. Now, this very poor me syndrome of HRBP, they have to come out of it. Are we working as a team, a tandem, to see the candidate's fitness for a position? Or we are operating in a paradigm, I have my fiefdom, you have your fiefdom, we will sit together and safeguard our fiefdom. This unlearning process they need to go through. Aneeta and I together are creating this video. It is not I versus Aneeta.
Exactly.
Aneeta is part of me. Together, we are setting up ourselves for success to help the learners. When I look at this with this attitude, we are together. It is not you versus me. I am proving I am better than you or vice versa. That's not the journey we are into. When a HRBP enters an interview room with that attitude, and he also collaboratively establishes that attitude in his colleagues, the interview is going to be seamlessly connected. It will be a joy of a process. Incidentally, for example, I quote an example. I've done interviews with line managers. The entire 1 hour, I have not spoken a word. but I've tutored him what to do, what competencies to see. End of the interview, I write the interview report, he puts a signature at the bottom. Vice versa, the second candidate, I do the entire interview, he writes the interview report, I put my signatures. That is excellence of synergies and understanding. Position requirement is paramount. It has got nothing to do with my and the colleague's functional excellence at all. When we get into this paradigm, you will work a tandem as team, you will set up yourself for excellence.
Okay.
For example, to just
it's the HRBP that has to make
elongate this discussion further, I have done interviews for CEOs. Just to extend this interaction, well drilling wire specialist. I know sweet zero on this function. But when I conduct an interview and recommend, they say, how the hell you know this function? You're so beautifully brought out. You ask me sincerely, I know nothing, even today. The reality is my listening, my comprehending, my enabling the person and synthesizing. The line manager approves my report, though he didn't even sit in the interview. The excellence these three things, not functional knowledge at all.
Okay, that last one sentence,
Yes, Aneeta.
Your voice broke in that last one sentence. I don't want our audience to miss out. So can you just repeat that last one or two sentences that you just made, if you don't mind?
What I was saying was the excellence of a competency-based interviewing process is intervening to extract the correct data, synthesizing and reporting. If I get this skill right, I can interview anybody under the sun. It is not the level. It is not my functional expertise that matters at all.
Great. So now we are getting closer to the end of our video. I just wanted to ask two more questions. And the first one is, according to you, what are some of the ethical boundaries for competency-based assessment? Because I already understood a lot of the boundaries you're explaining on competency-based assessment. But what are the ethics? Where do we cross the boundary? And would you like to share some of your thoughts on that?
Let's say I ask you a question. In your last assignment, share with me. Aneeta, am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible now.
So let me respond to that question.
Yes, please.
As far as I'm concerned, let's say if I'm asking a question to Aneeta, who's a candidate for, let's say, a director of IIM Ahmedabad. I asked the question, Aneeta, tell me in the last assignment being a head of an institution, tell me one intervention through which you made a huge difference to the institution and the brand image of the institution. Let's say I'm just giving hypothetical. Now you start. Now I work for an ex-institution. My ethical boundary is to not to push Aneeta to share which was that institution. She has a choice to say, not to say. If she says X, I have to respect her confidentiality, the proprietary of that information, and stop there. There are no, which was the, tell me the name of the institution. Who was your supervisor? I should know, I can ask. If the person chooses not to say, I should stop. Okay, let us keep it as X if you don't mind. Go ahead. What was his X role and what is your role? I will be collaborating with you to build the data forward because that institution, that information is not important. In the journey, what Aneeta did, what are her excitements, what were her experiences, what were her thoughts, what were her emotions that made her take decisions, made her traverse in a particular trajectory. This is going to be my focus, not what all happened in that company. Often people get stuck with the content rather than focusing on the process and the person underneath the process. They get offended because he didn't share the content. Not at all. The ethical boundary conditionally respect. And when it comes to personal information about the candidate, an interviewer should know whatever is undisclosed. The interviewer at the best can say, can we keep it as X? That should be the enabling question, not pushing. No, you didn't tell that name. I want you to share that. It means we are transgressing into the boundaries of the person, and we are somewhere sharing framework of other countries. There are lots of such boundaries we have. We need to respect, train ourselves so that we put up a good show and we don't cross any of the ethical boundaries.
Okay, so certainly those boundaries are very important, and you know, in any conversation, and particularly more in an interview, because the person is under a scanner and is being assessed. So there is a lot of boundaries. So
And he's in a selling situation. He's vulnerable. We need to respect that.
he's very vulnerable, and we need to hold that in grace. So
Correct.
my last question is, I mean, over the years, you've written this book and you've done a lot of work on competency-based interviewing, behavioral event interviewing, and you earned a good reputation for yourself on that subject. Have you seen things go wrong as far as the interviews are concerned? And they called competency-based interviews, but they still go wrong. What could be some of these pitfalls? In a very brief nutshell, if you could share with our audience here today.
I would say, in a way, the last few questions I have answered this question. The process doesn't go wrong. The person following the process can go wrong. When the person following the process drops the ball in terms of leading the person, in terms of not framing the question, in terms of not collaboratively working with the other colleague in the panel, that is where it causes a concern or a confusion to the candidate. Hence, the process can be less productive. But per se product, if you ask me, I am more than happy. It works beautifully. From the traditional interviewing, it is certainly X plus delta. It is never minus. But yes, when the user, like I have a Ferrari, if I don't drive it correctly, I can commit an accident. So it's the man behind the wheel that matters, not the wheel per se is faulty. That's designed for success. So process works. Can I look at my unlearning pains? Can I look at my indiscipline? Can I look at my slipping backwards to my old habits? If I look at all those things, I'm sure the process will certainly enhance an organization's productivity and impact.
Thank you so much. There's a huge perspective that you have shared with our audience here today, and I'm quite sure that they will go away from this video recording much more enriched and much more enlightened. And I do hope that I would have you again on another panel someday, speaking to me more in detail about the same topic and different topics as well. So it was a pleasure interviewing you today, Dr. Kamath, and I do hope you will accept a good vote of thanks from myself, from Open Spaces Consulting, and all the viewers who are going to be, seeing this particular video. And I look forward to our next in the series. Thank you so much.
Nice interacting with you, Aneeta, and wish all the learners the very best. Good day.
Good day.